Usually I make videos around the positive things about football, talking about players or managers who are playing very well. However, today we're changing up the script and I want to talk to you about Arsenal's worst player that has ever played for the club. And his name is sanogo. Now admittedly, there's definitely like a 10-year period where you could probably pick about half the Arsenal squad players because they weren't very good. And there's a lot of youngsters and players that didn't really live up to the hype that was first set on them. However, sanogo did have hype when he first was at the club, and to say he even got close to that would be a lie. Now sanogo was born in France and at a young age actually joined the Parisian club Charlton youth academy, and that was the same youth academy that produced Thierry Henry, so good start I guess. He quickly moved to first division club Woklz at the age of 13, playing in their youth system and scoring 25 goals in 14 matches in the under 14s, and was actually very good. And by the age of 16, Premier League clubs Arsenal and Tottenham were thinking about signing him on his first professional contract, but instead he stayed with Woklz and actually played in the first division for them, finally getting played by the professional club in the 2011-2012 season. Now somehow in Ligue 2 in France he actually managed to get 10 goals in 13, and although this wasn't a great sample size, Arsenal decided to buy him straight away as they wanted him when he was really young, buying him on a long-term deal at just the age of 20. Now there was actually a lot of expectation when he joined Arsenal that they were getting another French youngster who was a beast. At this point Wenger definitely had a reputation for buying great French youngsters and seemed to know the best talent out there, so a lot of people expected him to do very well as Arsenal got him for a very cheap deal, and he clearly proved himself at a little level in France. Straight away for Arsenal, he was a squad player. On the 24th of August, he made his debut coming on for Woklz at Craven Cottage, where Arsenal won 3-1 in the 81st minute. Sanogo then picked up an injury while on international duty with the France under-21 side in mid-September and missed quite a lot of time for Arsenal in that first season. Despite this and him only ever really playing in the second division of France, he got nominated for the Golden Boy Award in 2013. Now despite his limited game time, this was still a shock because when he did play, he looked like an oversized donkey. He was 6'3" and really couldn't sort out his feet in most of opportunities, and wasn't even very prolific in the air. And honestly, watching him, it just felt like there was not really a lot going on. In February 2014, he finally made his first start for Arsenal in a 2-1 FA Cup win against Liverpool. His performance was praised by Wenger, who showed his delight and called him excellent. Sanogo then made his Champions League debut in the round of 16 home leg against Bayern. Now, I'm not going to lie, he was straight awful in this game. Arsenal did get a red card though and lost 2-0, so it's not fully on his fault, but he just genuinely looked like an oversized giraffe again. But Sanogo did get opportunities in a lot of the other competitions. He played against Wigan a full 120 minutes in the semi-final of the FA Cup where Arsenal won on penalties and yet again did nothing. I think he hit the bar at one point. And he came on as a substitute in the FA Cup final against Hull where Arsenal won their first trophy since 2005. So somehow he had come to the Premier League. At this point he hadn't even scored for them, been given a lot of opportunities against big clubs, and had somehow won the FA Cup and been nominated for the Golden Boy Award. So it was going well for him even if he weren't doing anything. Overall in the whole season he played 14 games for Arsenal off the bench and starting. Most of them were off the bench in the league as he got 8 appearances. Now going into 2014-15 there was a lot of expectation that he was going to really kick on Sanogo and at least maybe he could get at least a goal for the team. I mean, after all, he was nominated for the Golden Boy, right? And well, it did go to a good start. In the Emirates Cup, which is a big thing that Arsenal do every year, especially back then where there was 3 teams in the tournament and it actually mattered, people watched every game, they were on TV to see, and it was quite a nice day to go to. Sanogo somehow managed to score 4 goals against Benfica in a 5-1 win. Benfica were actually a very good side at the time, so this was seen as a good start for him for going into the next season. Now I watched this game live and I couldn't believe he was actually doing it. Every single goal was an absolute tap-in or he just scuffed the ball into the net. He seemed like he found it difficult to score them, but for some reason Benfica weren't marking him and he just kept scoring. I mean, fair play I guess, but how has that been allowed to happen? I mean, this good form in pre-season let him get the Community Shield start just a week later where Arsenal played Manchester City, the champions. And nevertheless, against a good opposition, guess what? He did nothing. He was awful and couldn't even control the ball, barely touching it. Arsenal, however, just did the Community Shield thing they always do and won it. They won it easily, winning 3-0, and Giroud came on for Sanogo at half-time and scored an absolute worldie in the second half. Now at this point, he was getting around to the age of 22 and he was still given a lot of chances to prove himself in this Arsenal team. And because players like Woklz got moved into midfield, he was pretty much the only backup striker they had, so when Giroud weren't playing, they kind of had to bring him on. Now at this point though, he had been at the club for over a year and he had scored 0 competitive goals, and he had played around 800 minutes, so realistically he had to have done something. Often it seemed like he was very scared to get a shot away or trying to actually be a striker. Often he would not scrub up to people, and as soon as any sort of physicality happened, he would pass it backwards or run away basically. And for someone who's 6'3", that's not really good enough. But everything changed when Sanogo did the impossible. He managed to score A competitive goal for Arsenal. I know, I cannot believe it. Even more surprising, it was in the Champions League against Borussia Dortmund, who were a very, very good side at the time. This is Borussia Dortmund, who a year and a half ago had been in the Champions League final and narrowly lost. And now they can see into Yaya Sanogo. I mean, that is the biggest downfall in football history. The goal wasn't that bad either. He actually did really well squaring up the defender. And he did get very lucky with the finish. He kicks it at the keeper because he's so close, it goes under the legs. But I know, you take it. It was 2 minutes into the game and he didn't even barely touch the ball after that. But Yaya had done it. And the other goal scorer that day in Arsenal's 2-0 win, Alexis Sanchez. So, you know, different ability, I guess. Now, this season, I've got to admit, at this point, he hadn't really played. I think Wenger had realised that he's actually awful. And he only got given Champions League starts in the last 2 games because I think we were basically already through. Did get an assist in the other game, though, against Galatasaray, so fair enough. He actually started 2 of the first 3 games of the season, but then he got a hamstring injury and was out for a while. And then after that, he only ever played 1 minute for Arsenal in the Premier League. He was not included in the squad for a long time, and even though he scored that goal in the Champions League, Wenger didn't care, and in January loaned him out to Crystal Palace. Now, despite scoring only 1 goal for Arsenal in all the chances that he got, at this point you're probably thinking that maybe Arsenal could sell him on for more if he has a good loan at Palace, a decent Premier League side, or maybe Arsenal could give him another go, maybe like Eddie when he went to Leeds and, you know, eventually worked his way into the team. Form is temporary, class is permanent really came into play because his class was definitely not there and he was permanently awful. And he played over 300 minutes for Crystal Palace and did nothing. He played as a secondary striker, he played as a centre forward and scored 0 goals and got 0 assists in all them games. Not exactly good, is it? However, you will be surprised because they actually played him against Southampton in the FA Cup and he got a goal and an assist in a 3-2 win for Palace. This was his 2nd goal in English football and he'd been in it for 2 years. He then wasn't included in Crystal Palace's next FA Cup game against Liverpool and they went out. So at the end of the 14-15 season, he came back to Arsenal and they hadn't really learned a lot. He was still 22 though, so they thought, we'll give him 1 more year, 1 more shot. We'll send him out on loan some good clubs and hopefully he can do something. And they sent him off to Ajax in the Eredivisie. Now, he played 47 minutes in the Eredivisie and managed to get an assist against FC Twente off the bench, so not too bad. But then he was out with a groin injury for ages, and then when he wasn't injured, they didn't include him again. Obviously not liking him because he plays like a donkey. While he was there, he actually got 3 starts for the Ajax B team in the 2nd division, also doing nothing and then not being able to play again and not included. However, it weren't all bad because he did get an opportunity after this to go to Charlton in the Championship. Now, surely at least he's going to do something in the Championship, right? Well, in his first start for Charlton, he actually did somehow score a hat-trick, which was amazing, his first hat-trick in English football, scoring more goals in that game than he ever had in the country. However, they still lost 3-4, so not exactly the best. And 2 games after that, he actually got sent off after coming on. After this, he only started 1 more game for Charlton for the rest of the season, and he didn't score, so his only goals to them were the 3 goals in that hat-trick. Now, I thought at this point he'd already been released by Arsenal, but apparently he hadn't, and actually was still there the whole 2016-17 season. But he had a calf injury for 90% of the year and then played 3 games for the Arsenal Academy side, actually scoring 4 goals somehow. But after he was clearly injury prone and actually wasn't that very good at football at the top level, Arsenal decided to get rid of him, leaving his legacy in the Premier League at 0 goals in 21 games and only scoring 1 goal for Arsenal the whole time. Now I want to know who's the worst player you've ever seen play for your favourite team, and let me know what you think about Yaya Sanogo. If you like this sort of content, please watch my Santi Cazorla video and I'll see you in the next one.